Please comment where you are watching in the world. The first time David disappeared, it was a clean cut, like a barber with steady hands. One day, warm texts, voice notes that hummed like low radio. "You up, babe?" And memes that actually made sense. Next day, nothing. Air. London cold slid in and sat where his messages used to be. I met him on Hinge, on a Tuesday that smelled like chips and drizzle. His profile said, "Calm storm. Honest liar. Looking for trouble." I should have run. But his photos were a lesson in light, soft jawline, book in hand, hoodie draped low like he'd invented shoulders. We matched. He typed like he talked, smooth, with commas that felt like breath on the back of your neck. First date was Brixton, steam rising from jerk pits, bus brakes whining, the night market blinking its neon eyelids. He was funny. Not joke of the year funny, just careful funny, like he'd sanded the edges off his stories, so they slid into you easily. We shared a rum and a bench and a small slice of our pasts. He looked me dead on and said, "Don't get attached." I laughed a little too loud, because the way he said it was the way men say trust me before doing the opposite. We fell into a rhythm anyway. Morning GM like prayer beads. Afternoon, you eaten? Night FaceTime. His voice had that South London low, ends boy cadence dipped in honey. My mum would say I had butter in my ears, that softness that makes you hear what you want. Then I asked a practical thing. "What's your schedule like next week?" He changed texture right there on my screen. "You're moving fast." The three dots, typing, appeared, disappeared, returned, stuttered, died. "Don't get attached," he wrote again. And then the chat went cold, the way kettles do when someone forgets to switch them on. For weeks, my phone became a mirror that only reflected me. I swore off the app, swore off him, swore on my grandmother's head I was done. London winter deepened, the light going thin as paper. On the overground, the announcements sounded like warnings, mind the gap. Do not run for this train. I minded. I didn't run. He came back in September like a cat stepping through a door you didn't open. I saw his name in my story views. There it was, every morning at 2:13 a.m., like a prayer he didn't finish. He'd blocked my number but typed my handle into the search bar on purpose, letters in order, hunger arranged. Weeks of this. Then a match, again on Hinge, as if the app had decided we were fate, not a bruise. "Did you match me?" I typed. "Yes, I did," he replied. Full stop. Nothing else. The silence after that, yes, was long and rude. 1 week later I messaged for the plot, because I am not a strong soldier. We met in Peckham this time, in a bar that smelled like pineapple skins and old, clean wood. "I sent an apology ages ago," he said in that soft voice. "You blocked me." He said he had things to work through. Anger. An ex who left a stain. He made his pain into furniture, put it everywhere so I'd have to sit on it. I forgave him because I wanted the easy version of us I'd imagined, the warm one that made the city feel less sharp. The weekend stretched pleasant. His best friend came down from Leeds. We drank 2 sweet drinks, took 2 blurry photos, laughed like we'd put laughter in layaway and finally had the funds. When we were alone, he was gentle, then distant, then gentle. Walking his dog on Sunday evening, under a sky the color of a healing bruise, I pulled him into an embrace. He stiffened. Not a little. A lot. His hands found my shoulders and pushed me back an inch and a lifetime. "Don't get attached," he said. "There are sentences that rearrange you." That one moved my bones. I went home on the bus among people whose faces looked like clocks. I tucked myself into the corner seat and watched my reflection in the window sit on my lap. When my phone lit up at 2:13 a.m., it was just the phantom buzz the iPhone does when it wants to feel loved. I didn't sleep. The radiator clicked like an animal with small teeth. Friday, he was on a date, his story sloppy boomerang of clinked glasses, a laugh I didn't recognize in the background. My anger stood up in my chest. I messaged, "Why did you rematch me if you don't actually want me?" "I told you I'm not in a place to date," he wrote. "You're too attached." My miracle was that I didn't throw my phone. "Then why are you on the app?" "I don't know. I want someone and also, I don't. ... Gone. Here's where it got weird. Not loud weird. Creepy weird. Subtle weird that lives behind your eyes. The next week, he didn't message me. He watched again. 2:13 a.m., like clockwork, like church bells, like superstition. I started waiting for it, even when I said I wasn't. The view count rose by one like a finger tapping a window I didn't want to look out of. His name, there, hovered like breath on a mirror. Sometimes a fake account with 0 posts would view my story too. A burner? A twin? I blocked one, and 3 more grew back like teeth. I'd be on the Victoria line, warm and tired, and feel it, the prickle that says you're being seen. I'd look up and catch no one, only myself doubled in the carriage glass, behind layers of faces, all of us strangers pretending the same city. At a market in Deptford, a man selling plantains said, "Smile small, sis," and I jumped like he'd spoken my secret. In Tesco, an aisle of cereal boxes stared with cartoon eyes. At night, wind threaded the letterbox and made the hallway speak. "Stop feeding it," my best friend Adiz said over jollof at mine. "She speaks in proverbs when she's done being soft. If you feed a shadow, it grows like yam." "I'm not feeding it," I lied, thumb already hovering over my stories. He watched again. I watched him watching. My phone became a two-way mirror. The second time he asked to see me, it was in a message that read like it hadn't been written so much as exhaled. "Slide down later?" Casual, like we were a habit, like I was a soft place to fall. I didn't answer. He sent a photo of the dog. The dog looked guilty. I projected my feelings onto a spaniel and felt insane. I saw him once more before I decided to stop seeing him. Bermondsey, under the train arches, cold enough that my breath made shapes. He was beautiful the way bad ideas are. Coherent, shiny, easy to sell to yourself. "I do want love," he said. "Just not pressure." I asked for a calendar invite, I said, and wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. "I'm trying to be better," he said. "I swear." He had that kind of eyes that make swears look true. "Don't get attached," I said back to him gently, like giving a child his own toy. I left him under a flickering streetlight that buzzed like an insect and thought, this is how hauntings start. Not with doors slamming and plates flying, but with a drip, a view, a repetition that makes a groove in your brain. I should have trusted the voice first. Not what it said, the sound of it. A little off, like a radio station one click past the right frequency. The man in the photos wore London the way some men wear cologne. Banker's coat, Shoreditch bar lighting, plants too curated to be real. We matched on a wet Friday. He typed as if he were leaning in. "You've got a dangerous smile," he wrote. I rolled my eyes and smiled anyway. We moved to calls quickly, his idea, which felt like a green flag until it wasn't. "FaceTime sometime?" he said. Then, when I said yes, he rang on audio. No video. "Late." A soft crackle, then, "Hello, you all right? How are you?" The words were perfectly ordinary. The voice sat wrong in them, like a borrowed suit. I told myself to stop being shallow. Voices change when you're shy, right? The next day, he sent a video of himself in a gray hoodie, the camera an arm's length away. He spoke for 10 seconds about nothing, eyes flicking off screen, like he was checking notes. The background was a blank wall and a green couch that looked like a rental showroom. I watched it twice, then a third time, awareness creeping in on cat feet. The light in the video was too bright for 10 p.m. in London. A strip of sun across the wall like a machete. The shadows said afternoon. My clock said night. "Give us a tour of your fancy flat," I messaged, teasing. He sent me 4 photos at once, an exposed brick kitchen, a fern basking in a square of light, a bed piled with slate linen, a view of a skyline not quite ours. On the kitchen image, in the bottom corner, a faint watermark, the name of a real estate site. He'd cropped it, almost. The fern had 3 identical twins in Google image results, though I didn't know that yet. I only knew I felt the prickle you get when you realize someone's hand is guiding your head while they say, "Look here, not there." "Babes," he wrote, "wear that outfit from your Insta, the hat and heels. Let's do martinis Friday." I laughed out loud. "For a drink? In heels?" "Nah, you'll get Vans and lip balm. Take it or leave it." "Please," he replied. "You look fly." It wasn't the word, it was the need. I said we'd meet at a station I chose, public, busy, obvious. He suggested a different one, then a different bar. He kept nudging me away from places I knew. When I insisted, he folded quickly, like paper that had been creased before. That week my phone became a small theater. He sent videos of his hands pouring whiskey, of a book he was reading, of a rain-streaked window. Nothing with his face, except that one 10-second clip. The rain, if that's what it was, hit the glass like fat beads in heat. It sounded tropical. I turned my phone's volume up, down, up. The room answered me with London's radiator breath. The window in his clip pulsed with afternoon glare. "Where are you from?" I asked, casual. "London," he typed, and then a beat later, "Originally Lagos." A Nigerian flag emoji. "But I'm here. Been here ages. I'm Nigerian British." My dad says you can't hear Lagos in the mouth of a man trying not to be from there. But I heard it anyway, or maybe I only heard the effort. The voice on that first call had flattened vowels and edges that had been filed. It wasn't the sound of Lagos or London. It was the sound of practice. Friday came with a bruise-colored sky. I reached the station early and stood under the board where the times flip and clack like bones. People moved around me in that efficient London way. Bodies like oiled machinery, no friction unless necessary. I wore my Vans and my lip balm. He sent a text, running 10 late. I watched the second hand pull itself around the clock face. I watched couples reunite with loud small noises. I watched a man in a coat like his type something and delete it. 10 minutes became 20. Where are you? I wrote. On my way, he replied. The typing dots flashed, retreated. Your hat? I didn't reply. The platform wind slipped icy fingers down my collarbones. The station announcement echoed, went thin and echoed again. 30 minutes. My phone buzzed. The match was gone. His profile vanished. Blocked on WhatsApp, too. Messages blue-ticked into smoke. I stood underneath the fluorescent hum and realized I'd been speaking to a gap with a mouth. On the train home, I scrolled back through everything because that's what we do. We examine the trap as if we can find a kinder tooth. In the video of the green couch, the wall socket was 2 round holes, European not UK. In the whiskey pour, the label on the bottle was for a brand much fancier than his whole vibe. The watermark on the kitchen photo was obvious now that I knew to squint. And in the one-face video, the 10 seconds where he'd looked at me without looking, there was the tiniest slice of a window bar with rust and peeling paint, the kind you get where salt hangs in the air and everything tries to corrode. I thought of my auntie's flat in Suralere with its sun-fat afternoons and thick heat, of Lagos generators purring like lazy beasts when NEPA takes light. That night, my DMs pinged with a new account. 0 posts, 0 followers, following 1 me. Hey, it said. No avatar. Then a voice note came through, 9 seconds long. I put the phone to my ear and heard a breath, then a whisper just above a murmur. English, yes, but shaped by something humid. Don't be angry, the voice said. I was going to be good to you. Not a what are you wearing? Curiosity. A demand. He'd gone spelunking through my Instagram, found a 3-year-old picture of me in a felt brim hat, red lipstick, and ridiculous heels, and texted. Wear this to the bowling alley. He added a winky face like it was a joke. Then another message, be fly. I like my girls fly. Vans and a hoodie, I replied. It's Wednesday. We're bowling. He double-texted, triple-texted, insisted. The last bubble sat there. Do it for me. Something in my stomach turned like a key. I went anyway. That's the part that keeps me up some nights. The way you can feel a red flag brush your cheek and still step forward. The alley was in Brooklyn, one of those neon-lit places where everything is sticky with the ghost of soda. A family birthday squealed 2 lanes over. The shoe spray smelled like hospital lemons. On the TV above us, a silent Knicks game flickered like a fish tank. He was already there, standing with his hands in his pockets like a cop in plain clothes. Tall, fitted Yankees cap, beard lined sharp. He looked up, let his eyes travel from my sneakers to my face, and said the first sentence he ever said to me in person. You're really short. Not hello. Not nice to meet you. Just that, a measurement, a judgment. He delivered it flat, a cashier telling you your total. I get that a lot, I said, because my body still thinks defusing bombs is my job. He turned and walked to the counter for shoes without waiting, like we'd been fighting for years. The clerk gave me a look over his shoulder that said, Girl, blink twice if you need rescuing. We found our lane. He kept glancing at my hoodie like it was an insult. You coulda came fly, he muttered. I like my girls fly. You got a girl? I asked, voice light. He didn't laugh. I like my girls fly, he repeated, which is not an answer but was definitely a warning. His accent had that New York gravel, harsh on the edges. He bowled first. The ball thunked into the gutter, hard like a decision. When I stepped up, he hovered. Let me show you, he said, reaching for my wrist. His fingers were cool and dry and somehow condescending. I pulled my hand back, smiling. I got it. Okay, shorty, he said, like a curse dressed as a pet name. Do your lil thing. I did. I'm bad at bowling, but I like the ritual. The weight, the stride, the loose release. My ball wobbled, kissed a single pin, and left the rest standing like teeth. He snorted. Loud. People glanced. You trash, he announced, cheerful. You dead trash at this. Guess so. I said and tried to laugh. The laughter didn't fit in my mouth. Between frames, the light on our scoring screen flickered, then steadied. His face in the glow looked like a mask, all edges, no warmth. He asked where I grew up, where my parents were from, why I left my last relationship, questions with the softness stripped out. When I answered, he nodded like he was checking boxes. When he talked about himself, everything was boasts and vague hints. He said my apartment, in a way that made it sound like a throne. He said my ex, like the word tasted bad. He kept circling back to my height. "Yo, you real short," he would say, head tilted, like he was examining a defect in a product. Like real short. Then he'd take the ball and fling it hard enough that the machine clanged and shuddered. The creepiness wasn't in anything overt. It was in the rhythm, the constant critique, the eyes that didn't smile when his mouth did, the little power plays, snatching the ball from the rack just as my fingers reached, stepping into my space as if I'd invited him. It was in the way he watched other women, tracking, calculating, and then turned back to me like I should be grateful he'd settled. When I finally bowled a strike, pure accident, physics taking pity, he didn't clap or grin or offer a high five. He leaned close, so close I could count the clipped ends of his beard, and said low, "You still look better in them heels." "I wore what I wanted," I said. My voice sounded stable. My hands were not. He smiled, a thin zip. "We'll see." The family party 2 lanes over started singing, high and tinny, "Happy Birthday." The boy blew out his candles. The smoke rose in a ribbon that twisted, then vanished. I imagined that ribbon was my patience. "I'm calling it," I said after the next frame. "Got an early morning." He looked at the clock like I'd lied to him. "It's 9. Early, I said. "Gotta bounce." He stared. His eyes stayed on mine, but his body leaned toward the door, like he was already walking me there in his head. "Come to my spot," he said. "No." He blinked, slow. "Come to my spot. I'm going home." Something in his face, some tiny muscle near his jaw, twitched. In another setting, he might have wrapped it in charm. Here, he let it sit. "You're not gonna waste my time," he said, like a threat he was offering as a favor. I paid for my shoes. He didn't help. He didn't even look. When I turned to wave, because the part of me that still gives people gentle endings is stubborn, he had his phone out, thumbs moving fast. He didn't wave back. By the time I got outside, the cold had gotten teeth. The block had that Brooklyn emptiness you only get on school nights. The bodegas lit up like miniature stages, the wind carrying a faint metallic tang from the subway grates. I started toward my car. Footsteps fell in behind me, perfectly matched to mine. Not close. Not far. Just there. New Yorkers learn a sixth sense for being followed. You check reflections, shop windows, car doors, black rectangles of turned-off screens. In the dark glass of a nail salon, I saw me, small and rounded by my coat. Behind me, a taller shape, his cap a tiny triangle against the streetlight blur. I slowed. The footsteps slowed. I turned into the small parking lot. The footsteps paused at the corner. A beat. Then resumed faster. I picked the bar because it felt neutral. Hockey game on TV, golden light, glassware singing softly when the servers stacked it. It was one of those Toronto Sundays where the air was cold enough to turn your breath into little white lies. I arrived early, sat where I could see the door and the streetcar line yawning past like a red thread. The bartender, Tara, slid me a water without asking. "You're set, hun," she said. I nodded. Polite. Calm. Canadian. He messaged here. He looked like his photos, salt and pepper beard trimmed like a geometry problem, clean sweater, a smile that suggested he'd been told he had a nice smile. He waved at Tara like he'd been here before. "How's it going, eh?" he said to me, almost performative, like he was trying the accent on. "Good, you?" I said. We did the polite exchange, the litany. "Where are you from? What do you do?" "TTC horror stories, haha." The Leafs were down a goal, and a man at the end of the bar muttered, as if he'd been personally wronged. We ordered nachos, which arrived with jalapenos that smelled like green fire. The night was ordinary in that Toronto way. We all shared a room, nobody shared a word. He laughed at my jokes. I liked his hands, clean, careful, a little ink stain on one finger. We got to the part of conversation where people audition their pasts. Not numbers, not names, just patterns. "Are you a relationship person?" he asked. The game's commentary slipped to commercial, the bar's buzz softened. "I try to be," I said. "Last person I was with, different city, lots of commuting." He was... I shrugged, choosing honesty over vague. He was black. It wasn't a confession. It was a fact, like the weather, like the way the bar smelled faintly of lemon and old wood. But the moment the word left my mouth, something changed in his face. His smile closed like a door in a windstorm. "Wait," he said. I waited. "You mean like..." He made a helpless little gesture with his hand, sketching a silhouette in the air, as if race were a shape you could pinch between fingers. "You slept with a black guy?" The words were ordinary, but the tone wasn't. The TV's light seemed to stutter. A neon beer sign buzzed louder, then softer, like it had a heartbeat. Tara glanced over, just a flick of an eye, like a lighthouse sweep. "Yes," I said. "Is that a problem?" He chuckled, a small, brittle sound. "It's just..." He looked around, not for answers, but for an audience. "It's not something I can't believe you would..." He trailed off, and then lowered his voice into something hot and mean. He didn't use a slur, he didn't need to. The way he said "those people," "dirty," "you don't know where that's been." The phrases came like he'd picked them from a drawer he swore he didn't own. I sat back. The stool creaked. Somewhere behind us, a fork hit a plate with a small clatter that felt enormous. The hockey game returned, the crowd noise now a million tiny bees in the walls. "Hey," I said, light, like easing a car out of a skid. "You're being weird, eh?" His eyes snapped to mine. "Weird? No. I'm honest." He leaned in. His voice was softer now, like a lullaby. "You don't know what you bring back with that. You don't know what it means." He was smiling again, but it had no kindness in it. A chill crept up my arms. I felt suddenly aware of everything tactile. The condensation on my glass, the damp ring it left on the coaster, the way my pulse lived in my fingertips. The bar's mirror showed the two of us as distant strangers, the overhead bulbs lined up like exit signs I couldn't reach. "Bathroom," I said and stood. "Be right back." He caught my wrist. Not hard, but enough to say, "I see you." The contact was dry and exact. I could feel the ridges of his fingerprints like the teeth of a key. "Come on," he said, more coaxing than commanding. "We're just talking." Tara's voice cut across the bar like a friendly bell. "You good, hun?" She didn't move, just let the question hover where my answer could live inside it. "All good," I said, and he let go. My skin burned where he'd touched it. Not pain exactly, just the knowledge of being held. The bathroom was bright, too bright, the mirror honest and cruel. The hand dryer roared like a storm in a cave. I locked myself in a stall and listened. Bar sounds on the other side of the door came muffled and watery, like I'd ducked my head under a lake. My phone buzzed, a text from him, a single question mark. Another buzz, "We're fine." "Don't be dramatic." I breathed in slow, out slower. I looked at my face and thought of all the times I'd been polite instead of safe. When I opened the stall, a woman was at the sink painting on a new mouth. She met my eyes in the mirror and did that small Canadian thing, concern filtered through courtesy. "That guy," she said very gently, "is giving me the ick." We both laughed a little. It sounded like a secret handshake. When I came back out, the bar had shifted by half an inch, like an old house settling. His seat was empty. His jacket was gone. The only proof he'd existed was a perfectly sweating pint glass and the tiny wet crescent it had left on the bar top. On the stool, a small pile of salt from the pretzel bowl made a white constellation. Tara raised her eyebrows. He ducked. "Yeah," I said. My voice surprised me by being steady. "That worked out perfect, eh?" She snorted. "Men." She slid me a shot of something amber. "On the house. For your, what did he call it? Drama." We clinked. The whiskey was warm and medicinal, the kind of heat that tucks a blanket around your nervous system. The night carried on the way Toronto nights do. Everyone polite, nobody looking too long. But the creepy didn't leave when he did. It lingered in the mirror's depth, in the neon's insect hum, in the way the streetcar's windows flashed past like a long, red eyelid. Every time the door opened, cold air licked the back of my neck. Every time a man laughed, my muscles prepped to flinch. The leaf scored and the bar erupted, and for a second, the sound hit a memory I didn't want. His breath close, his teeth shone in that not smile. After a while, Tara and I talked about nothing and everything. Her cat, my landlord, the best shawarma at 2 a.m., "You're good," she said one last time as she wiped a clean circle in the bar with a rag that smelled like lemon. "I'm good," I said, and meant it. Outside, the street was washed in sodium light. Snow dusted the curb like powdered sugar. My reflection followed me in the dark window of a closed shop. A woman walking home alone, shoulders square, keys threaded between fingers, not because I was scared, but because I liked the way the metal felt, solid, certain. On the streetcar, two teenagers argued about Drake. A woman in scrubs slept sitting up. The city rocked me back and forth, mothering me across its tracks. My phone lit with a number I didn't recognize, and I watched it ring out, then go dark. Another number lit up. Another. The silence afterward was thick and sweet as maple syrup. I put my phone face down on my thigh and watched the world go by. Brick and glass and snow and places where people are kind until they're not. I met him on a Wednesday arvo when the heat lay over Adelaide like cling wrap. He messaged paragraphs, not grunts, and his photos were all clean angles, jawline terrariums, hands holding a bearded dragon with orange scales like rust. I run a small reptile rescue, he wrote. People dump them. I don't. That tugged something in me. I like people who choose the unloved. He turned up quiet. Not shy, quiet like a screen on pause. He had that long, still face Aussie men get from not blinking in sunlight. At the pub he ordered soda water and told me how blue tongues get run over because folks think they're snakes. He used the word folks, which nobody under 50 says here unless they're trying on a personality. My friends came by our table on their way out, tossing jokes like breadcrumbs. He watched them with a dead, mild smile. Later, when they'd gone to the rooftop, he said, "That one in the pink. I really hate girls like that." No tone. Not banter. A sentence placed carefully on the table between us. "Yeah, nah," I said, too breezy. "She's a sweetheart." He shrugged. Loud. Human noise. "Don't like it." We took my car because he said his Uda had a warning light, and anyway I knew the back streets. The sky was low and brown at the edges from a grass fire out north. The air had that baked old grass smell that makes you think of summer school, melted tar and dead cicadas. He buckled his seatbelt and angled the vent toward his face, precise as a pharmacist measuring out powder. "I've got this rescue," he said as I merged. "You should see it. Little heating pads. Mice in the freezer for the snakes." "Yum," I said, and he smiled with his mouth only. If you can call that smiling. We were halfway to my place, so he could meet the others before they hit Peel Street when he asked what my sign was. I laughed. Hungry and tired. He didn't laugh with me. He was looking at my hands on the wheel. "You bite your thumb," he said. "You've gnawed the edge. That's stress behavior. Cheers, Dr. Doolittle." He turned his head then, slow, studying me like a fence lizard studies heat. "If it came down to it," he said, "I'd save an animal over a human. Easy choice." I thought he wanted a fight. Even if the human's a kid? Especially if the human's loud. I told myself it was a line. People say things to be spicy. But he didn't look at me for a reaction. He looked at the windscreen, the way the light shivered across it as we passed under gum trees. The silence swelled. I flicked the radio on, and the news voice said something about heat records and blackouts, and then the static swallowed it. The station died for a breath. It felt like the whole night had skipped a beat. "Let me show you the rescue," he said, sudden. "It's 5 minutes off this road." "I told the girls we'd meet at mine," I said. "They're already on the gin and gossip." "It's quick." He didn't sound keen. He sounded like a sat-nav that had chosen a route for me. I drove on, heat nagging at the back of my neck. A magpie dropped into our lane, and then popped up again, cackling like it knew something. He watched it with bright, reptile interest eyes, and then went still again. He didn't talk much after that. When he did, it was in statements, not opinions. People talk too much. Dogs are too wet. Birds are better than all of us. At a red, he pointed at the windscreen. Dead bug. His finger traced the exact spot where a smear had flattened into an amber arc. He didn't touch the glass. He hovered. "You killed it," he said softly, not to me. The word killed hung there, a fly under a hot lamp. At mine, the friends didn't like him. You can tell when a room huddles in small ways. He stood in the doorway and took us in like exhibits, couch mammals, nocturnal, drinkers, messy. He didn't sit until I told him to sit, and when he did, he perched, spine so straight you could string a line off it. My friend Steph, the one in pink, asked about the lizards to be friendly. He looked at her hair, then her throat, then the beaded bracelet she fidgeted with, his gaze moving in tidy, insect steps. "I keep them in tubs," he said. "Heat mats underneath. Water bowls. Hide boxes. They relax if you cover the top with a towel." He said they the way some men mean women. Steph shifted closer to me until our knees touched. She does that when something's off, finds your knee like a lighthouse. He clocked it and smiled the thin smile. "Bonded pair," he said. "You too." It wasn't a question, and there was nothing playful in it. When they nipped out to brush their teeth and reapply lipstick, Girl's bathroom ritual, bless it. He stood up. The movement startled me. He hadn't warned me with a loosened muscle or a breath in. He just stood. His shadow crossed the coffee table. You want to know something? He said. Nope, I said, because I'm funny when I'm scared. He told me anyway. If it came down to it, I would rather kill a human than let an animal die. I've practiced. His voice was conversational, the tone you use to discuss snacks. He flicked his eyes toward the window. I couldn't tell if he meant practice the thought or the thing. My skin turned to ice under the Adelaide heat. Practiced? He glanced at my ficus by the window, leaves dusty. You don't water that enough. He was back in the car before I could decide if I needed to be humble or hysterical. He insisted on driving me to meet my other mates because, your hands are shaking, you shouldn't drive. He said it like a kindness. I let him because I wanted to collect data, because I am an idiot, because I felt like a frog in a lab watching the scientist note my pulse. His Uda smelled like hot plastic, mice, and something faintly medicinal, disinfectant, maybe, or heat pad rubber. On the dash, a small digital thermometer ticked the degrees up and down like a heartbeat. The glove box didn't close flush. When he took a roundabout, it hiccuped open and I saw inside a roll of vet tape, a bottle with no label, a ziplock of pinkish cubes. He snapped it shut with 2 fingers, neat as a magician. He drove like he was stitching himself to the road, fast, smooth, eyes far ahead. When a cat darted out, he did not brake. He did not swerve. He did not even flinch. The cat made it anyway, vanished under a fence, and a weird, small smile grazed his mouth and was gone. Reflexes, he said, proud of himself or the cat, I couldn't tell. I texted Steph under my thigh. Call me in 5, make a scene. She rang me with Academy Award sobbing, our friend group's emergency theater, and told me I had to come back, the landlord, the leak, the magpies were rioting, anything. He watched my face while she performed. He looked curious, not fooled. Humans, he said, as if tasting the word. Noisy. We pulled up near Peel and he idled. He didn't put it in park. His hand rested on the gear stick, long fingers light as a huntsman's legs. Before you go, he said, come see the rescue. They're settling for the night. They know me. He leaned slightly closer. His pupils didn't change. I could show you how to handle them. Hold the head properly. You don't want them to bite. Another night, I said. I'm knackered. The heat. He nodded, as if he were agreeing with himself. Heat's good. Slows things down. I stepped out. His engine purred, holding the note. He leaned across the seat and looked at me through the open door. You know what I hate? He said softly, like sharing a secret. When a thing knows it's trapped, it ruins the science. He said he wanted to cook for me. Proper Sunday sauce, not the jar stuff, and I laughed because his accent did not know a single Italian vowel. Still, I was flattered. I'm from Napoli. Food is my love language and my superstition. You stir with the right hand, so the day doesn't curdle. You taste from the wooden spoon, never the metal. If somebody cooks for you, maybe they want to know your ghosts. His apartment smelled like garlic and canned tomatoes and the faint, chemically sweetness of something trying to be clean. Shoes off, he asked, and I slipped them at the door because I'm polite even when I'm tired. He had set the table with mismatched plates and a candle in a jam jar, trying very hard. A playlist of soft soul played low. The sauce bubbled. He tossed spaghetti with the confidence of a YouTube chef, steam haloing his head. Sit, he said, tapping a chair. He poured red wine. I put my hand over my glass. After, I promised. Another superstition. I don't drink the first time at a stranger's house. He didn't argue. He just slid a big bowl in front of me, meatballs plump as fists, a shower of grated cheese melting into the red. The first bite was a postcard from home, salt, acid, sweet, that stupid American thrill of he did it right. I grinned. He grinned back. Vedi, he said, testing the Italian word like a pebble. Si. Vito, I said. I see. We ate and watched something half funny, half forgettable. He talked with his hands the way I do, mirroring polite. He asked about Napoli, and I told him about my nana's back courtyard, where basil grew like hair, and every summer afternoons smelled like tomatoes burning, just a little on the bottom of the pot. He listened. He asked if spaghetti was my favorite. I shrugged. It's the mother tongue, I said, but I can be seduced by a good risotto. Halfway through my bowl, the first steak rolled through me, a small, shy fist pressing under my ribs. I ignored it. Maybe I had eaten too fast, the way I do when I talk with my hands and forget my mouth is working too. He refilled my plate before I could protest. Manja, he said. You're a guest. I ate because I was raised to finish what's in front of me, because I liked him, because it felt rude to refuse the generosity of pasta. The ache came back, stronger this time, a hot thread unwinding down my middle. I put my fork down and breathed, counting the beat like I do when the subway lurches, and I won't embarrass myself. He watched me with a softness that should have been concern. Okay, he asked. I think, I said, and then my body told me what it thought. It is a stupid kind of horror, the kind that begins in the gut. Shame moves faster than fear. Bathroom? I said, already standing. He pointed down the hall. Second door, he said. I left a towel for you. The door clicked behind me and I locked it, thank God, with a thumb that shook. The bathroom was tidy and cruelly bright. My face in the mirror looked like someone else's, flushed, eyes going glassy around the edges. Another wave hit, decisive. My body decided. There are details I won't keep. You don't need them. What matters is the speed, the helplessness. The way your own skin feels like a costume you can't step out of fast enough. When it was over enough to move, I ran the shower. The water hid my breath. I rinsed myself because I could not bear the idea of opening that door without baptizing from head to toe. On the bath mat, a folded pair of shorts waited with impossible neatness. They were the right size. They were already there. My stomach turned again, but in a different direction. How lucky for me that he had a perfect pair of shorts, folded, waiting. I wrapped myself in his towel and cracked the door. I started. I am so sorry. I had an accident. I need to. Don't worry, he said, from much closer than I expected. He was sitting on the edge of the couch, which faced the bathroom door as if it were a stage. He didn't look angry. He looked kind. It happens. Give me your clothes. I'll wash them. No, I said, humiliation too big to swallow. I will. Please, he said, and that word was gentle enough to undo me. I passed him the bundle, not looking, like a child surrendering a broken toy. He smiled like I'd done something brave. I have detergent for delicates, he said. They'll be good as new. The washing machine started. The sound filled the apartment with a watery heartbeat. I dressed in the shorts. They smelled like nothing, like a new store. My hair dripped down my back and I wiped it with the towel that felt suddenly too soft, as if someone had chosen it for this moment, for this friction. Do you want tea? He asked, when I came out, and his voice had brightened half a tone. Ginger is good for the stomach. That is very sweet, I said, throat tight. But I should. He was not looking at my face. He was looking down, at his lap. His hands were in it, and he was holding my underwear like a rare bird he had coaxed to land. He wasn't disgusted. He wasn't even pretending to be helpful anymore. His fingers were exploring, careful, like someone winding a watch. Everything in me froze except my pulse, which sprinted. The washing machine hummed a lullaby while the rest of the world tilted. What are you doing? I asked, and my voice did not sound like mine. It floated above us, useless as steam. He startled as if I had interrupted a prayer. He said, and then his face rearranged into the smile you practice in a mirror. This is a thing I enjoy, he said, enunciating too carefully. I hoped you would be okay with it. With what? I said, though my body already understood. Scat, he said like a password. Not with you. Not touching you. Just this. Watching. Cleaning. Playing. The last word made my skin crawl off my bones. He gestured to the bathroom. I put a little. He stopped himself. He looked at me to see if I would fill the blank. I did not. In the sauce, he said finally, and his smile went lopsided, shy, boyish. Not a lot. Just enough. So you'd feel safe to let go. He laughed once, a breathy puff, as if he had told a charming story at a dinner party. I stepped back. The room did not move with me. The candle on the table threw a fat shadow that looked like a hole. The playlist had run down to a track with no lyrics, just a woman's mouth breathing into a microphone. Somewhere under that, the machine churned, dutiful. You drugged me, I said, and it sounded like a line from a TV show, lines you are supposed to say while the audience understands the scene is about to twist. It's not a drug, he said, offended. It's over the counter. Harmless. You're fine. I would never. He gestured at my body with both hands, earnest, eager. I washed the shorts for you. I'm taking care. I looked at the tea kettle on the stove, remembering how my nana would slap my hand if I tried to pour too soon. Wait, the water needs to sing first. The kettle here was already beginning to mutter. It sounded like teeth chattering. I'm going home, I said. I said it in Italian because I wanted a wall between me and the world. Vedo a casa. He stood up too quickly, hands raised, palms out, either surrender or invitation. Don't be mad, he said, and the heartbreak of that, don't be mad, almost made me laugh. We can talk. I can put everything in the wash. You can shower again. I'll make the bed fresh. It's soft, he said, and his voice went tender around the word soft. We can watch something funny. You'll feel better. I took a step to the side toward the door. I left. I grew up in a small German town where the buses stop running before the night remembers its night. Friday, the last S-Bahn from the next biggest city, left at 22:13, and if you missed it, you counted coins and prayed for a cab. I was closeted then, didn't know it, didn't want to know it, and I had rules for myself like rosary beads. Always meet in public, always keep your address a secret, always pretend you are just curious. When I matched with him, he was older, studying law, photos tidy as an Excel sheet, pressed shirts, bookshelf, a plant that didn't droop. He wrote in proper German, full punctuation, Jern, wir können essen gehen. Polite, safe, sicher. Dinner lasted long, half an hour folded into 3. He asked the right questions and laughed at the right places. I liked how his glass stayed exactly half full the whole time, as if his hand had a quota. When the bill came, the server glanced at our empty plates and the time. The clock on the wall clicked with that smug tick German clocks have, like Ordnung muss sein, even for seconds. Outside, the last tram had already sighed off without me. He said, "It's no problem. My place is nearby. You can order a taxi from there, it will be cheaper." Practical. He said it the way a lawyer would say it, an argument with no gaps. His building was the kind of Altbau that makes you think of postcards, tall windows, a stairwell that smelled of old wood and boiled potatoes. On the 3rd floor, a neighbor's radio played Schlager too sweet, like cough syrup. He opened the door, and the apartment breathed cool air at me. It was pretty in the way staged apartments are pretty. Prints in black frames, a rug with a correct geometric pattern, the plant from the photo perfectly alive. "We can open a bottle," he said. "We won't," I said, smiling, because one of my rules was no drinking in strangers' flats. "ACH so," he answered, and his mouth did something that was not a smile and not a frown, just a filing of information. "I'll use the bathroom," I said, and texted my friend from the tiled sanctuary, "Date is good. He has furniture." Law guy. I looked around for the giveaway signs, because that was another rule. Are there hair ties, a pink razor, a floral shampoo that isn't his? Nothing. The bathroom was clean the way a hotel room is clean, like it had been cleaned for me. The mirror was streakless. The hand towel felt freshly laundered and a little damp at the edges, as if someone had pinched water out of it and folded it with a ruler. When I came out, he was in the bedroom doorway. "Taxi," he asked. "Jog like," I said, and then my eyes left his face, which was polite and straight out of his photos, and landed on the thing on his dresser. At first I thought it was a candle jar, with leftover wax clotted around the lip. The glass was cloudy with a milky film and inside, blue. A pharmacy blue, not quite Listerine, not quite sky, darker where it pooled, lighter at the rim, as if stirred and left to separate. There were flecks in it, tiny white bits suspended like fish food, and a hair laid against the inside, adhering to the slick as if caught mid-swim. The smell, even from where I stood, had a sweetness to it, sickly sweet, as if a mint was dying. Was this das? I heard myself ask, light as a laugh. What is that? He glanced over with the tiniest delay, as if making sure which that I meant. Das? ACH. He moved an inch into the room. Main, he groped for the word in English, because I'd been switching, practicing, flirting with language like it was skin. My syringe? It sounded wrong in his mouth, syringe, like a zipper with a tooth missing. Dein was? I said in German. Spritzbeutel? I joked, a pastry bag. Spritze? No, he said, patient, as if I were a child. My stranger. He said it like stranger. Then he smiled finally, a real smile that showed one tooth a little crooked. It's just, sometimes I'm in bed and too lazy to brush. So I swish Listerine, you know. He pinched 2 fingers and tipped them back toward his mouth, pantomiming a gargle. And I spit it back. He gestured at the jar, the blue ocean of it, calm and waiting. Damn it, ich morgen see, wie viel ich war. So I can see how much I did tomorrow. There are moments when your body knows before your brain. Mine took 2 small steps back without permission. Behind my knees, the rug's edge lifted and scratched my calf, and I felt the scratch all the way in my teeth. "Du spuckst dies Zurich?" You spit it back. My voice had left me to fend for myself. He nodded as if I'd praised him. "It's efficient. And hygienic. Alcohol kills everything." He said hygienic like it was a legal term, precise and scissoring the air. "I hate toothbrushes. The noise on enamel. Ugh." He shivered, and the shiver wasn't joking. It was a real shudder that made his shoulders climb to his ears and drop. "So I do this. Is good odor?" He looked pleased with his own neatness. Something was wrong with the air. The coolness had changed flavor, like the refrigerator when someone stores cut onions without a box. The plant on the shelf looked too green, manic green, the way fake plants are never dusty. On the nightstand, his phone face down pulsed with a small light, and each pulse threw the jar a heartbeat. The blue glinted. On the dresser there were rings, older rings, ghost circles, other jars, other nights, set down, picked up, set down. "Why the wax?" I said, and it was the kind of question you ask to keep the floor under your feet. Around the jar's lip, white tide marks had crusted. Some dripped down like candle fat, some smudged with a brown something, like a thumb had tried to wipe and only pushed it. There were tiny pocks in the crust as if air bubbles had popped and left mouths open. He glanced at the rim and then at me, and the look wasn't embarrassed. It was measuring. "Wax?" He considered. "Ah, condensation. Or I don't know." He almost shrugged. "Sometimes I test something." He said this softly, like a secret. "Like if I have a cold, you can see it." "See what?" I felt silly immediately. "Die Viren winken, hello?" The virus is waving hello. He smiled again, smaller, and his eyes did not change. "Color. Density." He tapped the jar. The blue trembled. A bubble rose like a slow thought and popped. The sweet smell moved a centimeter toward me, like a cat's paw under a door. "Also tastes better than toothpaste. There are jokes. Good dates ripen on them. Mine died." "I should call the taxi," I said, but my tongue was aboard. My throat tightened around air. In the hall, the neighbor's radio cut off mid-chorus, as if a plug had been yanked. He stepped half aside, a gentleman gesture that somehow pressed me toward the room, not the door. "Before you go, take a sip of wine," he said, returning to the earlier offer as if nothing inside the last 30 seconds had happened. "Just to warm you." He nodded at the kitchen where, I realized, 2 glasses were already poured. Red, and the bottles unseen. "A taste." "Cane sorg." "No danky," I said too quickly. He watched the word no sit between us like an insect, wings still. His eyes dropped to my hands. I tucked them into my jacket sleeves like a child. "I'll walk you to the door," he said, and the sentence trailed a thin filament of relief behind it. He didn't move immediately. He looked back at the jar like he was remembering something else he'd meant to say to it. Then he flicked the dresser with his nail. Tick, and the jar answered with a small sympathetic ting. He breathed in through his nose, sharp, as if smelling himself. The hallway was longer on the way out. The air in the stairwell felt used, like other people's breath was stuck in it. He didn't touch me. He stood by his door while I laced my boots too fast and got the loops wrong, fingers dumb as carrots. When I opened the outer door, the winter slapped my cheeks, clean, honest, unfurnished, cold. "Schreib mir, when du zu Haus bist," he said. "Write me when you're home." Perfect manners. His smile didn't reach anything except his mouth. Behind him, in the blue apartment, something hummed. Maybe the fridge, maybe the jar, impossible. I should have turned around at the freeway exit. The sun was folding itself into the desert like a hot coin, and the lanes bled out into a two-lane road with nothing on either side except prickly pear and dust devils. He'd texted, "Park on the south side." I dropped a pin for my roommate because I'm not completely reckless, but I was 23 and hungry and tired of ghosting people. A restaurant, he'd promised, 20 minutes from his place, 40 from mine. Simple. Casual. Except there were no other houses. No gas stations, no diners with neon beer signs, no barking dogs behind chain link. Just a dirt road that started where the asphalt ended, a road so narrow my tires skated both shoulders at once. My windows were down. Sand blew inside in needles. Somewhere out in the brush, a javelina snorted and thrashed, and I nearly laughed because he'd mentioned them jokingly in text like they were quaint. "LOL, watch out for my neighbors," he'd typed, emojis stacked like confetti. The house rose from the nothing like a flat-faced bruise. Low stucco. Sunburnt paint. A patio that had forgotten what furniture was. What it hadn't forgotten were cameras, big ones, not the cutesy doorbells. Black domes with red diodes blinking like slow heartbeats, one at each corner of the eaves and another above the door. The yard was bare except for a white shipping container at the edge of the property, squatting on cinder blocks. It had a number stenciled on it and a rust bloom around the latch like dried blood. He messaged, "South Side," again, and I realized that meant the back of the house, the part you couldn't see from the road. I sat behind my wheel for a breath too long. The air smelled like hot plastic and engine coolant. My phone screen was a small sun in my palm. I imagined his face, the profile pictures, the lopsided grin, a dimple like a puncture wound. My stomach did a slow, pinched turn, and I heard my mother's voice from 1,000 miles and 2 years ago. If you have to talk yourself into feeling safe, you're not. I killed the engine, and the silence fell hard. Dust drifted down. The shipping container made the faintest ticking sound like metal cooling, or don't think about it. The south side was a narrow strip where the stucco wall threw a blue shade. The camera above the door could not see me there. That should have comforted me. It didn't. He opened the front door and stepped out into the honeyed light. Same face as the photos, but wrong somehow. Not wrong like a liar, wrong like a still photograph of a person pretending to move. His eyes didn't catch on me so much as pass over me and settle somewhere behind my shoulder, like I was already peripheral. "Hey," he said. Not warm. Not shy. Flat as the desert itself. "You want to head out?" "I'm starving," I said. My voice was too bright. It sounded like the kind you use on skittish dogs. "Come in," he said. "Drink before we go." He gestured toward the shade at the south side, and I moved that way because I'd told myself 100 ways not to be rude. "South side," he added, and when I reached the corner I saw more cameras, discreet and patient, tucked under the eave like black barnacles. Inside, the house was colder than I expected. Not cozy cold. Unlived-in cold, the kind that smells like ducks and nothing else. The front room contained a couch, a coffee table, and boxes. A lot of boxes. U-Haul labels, some open-mouthed with packing paper hanging out like tongues. No pictures on the walls. No kid toys. He'd said he was a dad. He'd said the kids were with their mom tonight. He'd sent a winking face when I asked if that meant we could be loud. I watched him now, and I couldn't picture him making noise of any kind. "Where are your kids' things?" I asked. He walked to the kitchenette and opened the refrigerator. It sighed like a dying animal. Inside, a 2-liter of cola, nothing else. He lifted 2 glasses from the counter. "We just moved." No change in tone. No reassurance. The glasses were already poured. One sat close to me. The cola was too dark, even for cola. My throat closed on its own like a fist. "I'm good," I said. He picked up the glass and held it midair like a prop that had to cross the stage, then put it down. The second glass he filled slowly, and the bubbles were loud in the quiet. He pushed it toward me with 2 fingers. His nails were clean. The cuticles neat. The skin around them over-scrubbed. "I'm really good," I said. "Let's go. The place you mentioned closes early, right?" He blinked. I noticed another camera, this one small and silver, on a high bookcase with no books. It pointed at the couch. I imagined the red diode winking the way a cat's eye catches light. My phone buzzed in my pocket. 2 quick taps from my roommate. "You at the place?" And then, before I could reply, call if weird, I texted the word code, our dumb little system from college. She called 10 seconds later and performed grief so raw I almost believed it. Our non-existent dog, her sobs, the pretend vet bill. I said all the right things, echoed her panic, and told him I had to go. He stared. Something behind his eyes clicked like a cheap lighter. His face didn't change, but the temperature of the room dropped another degree. "Okay," he said. He followed me to the door. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to measure. When I stepped onto the patio, he stopped under the jamb and leaned one shoulder against it. I had to walk the length of the dirt to reach my car. The shipping container sat 20 feet away, door closed, padlock fat, and pitted with rust. A camera perched on a pole beside it, its little black eye pointed outward, not at the house. At me. I felt it then, the thought that wasn't a thought but a shape. If he wants, he can put you in there and you will not be heard. The desert swallows noise. Heat swallows smell. The cameras are for watching, not warning. "Hey," he called. "Can I show you something?" I didn't look back. I really have to. Just a second. My car clicked when the fob unlocked it. The sound was small in the open air. I reached for the handle, put my body between the door and the world the way a cat will press itself into a corner, making less of itself. The wind carried in the scent of creosote and hot metal. Somewhere a cicada started up, then another. The the sound swelling until it was a blanket of static. There was a breathless thunk that I felt before I heard, a slap of air that touched the hair at my crown. Something hissed past, feathering the top of my head, and the world sharpened as if someone had twisted a lens. An arrow stood quivering in the saguaro behind my car, sunk a hand's width into the green flesh. A crossbow bolt, the kind from movies. I turned by accident, not decision. He was there on the patio, legs apart, stance easy, a crossbow in his hands like it had always belonged there. The camera next to the container blinked. The one over the door blinked. His face, God, his face was blank in a way I can't describe, like he'd been removed and only the outline remained. "Did you see?" he asked. His voice didn't rise. "Good shot." I slid into my seat without closing the door, keeping my eyes on him, on the crossbow, on the steady way he held it pointed somewhere in the zone of me. The key found the ignition because my hands had done this so many times my brain didn't have to. "I have to go," I said, to him or the cameras or the saguaro, I don't know. He tilted his head. "Okay." I slammed the door. The engine caught. Gravel spit under my tires. I escaped. I should have Googled it. That's the sentence looping in my head as I nose my hatchback off the Major Deegan and follow the GPS up toward Yonkers. The skyline thinning to brick fronts and quiet storefronts with their metal grates pulled halfway down like tired eyelids. He'd insisted, hidden gem, trust me, they never update their hours online. And I'd told myself, okay, fair, I'm from Toronto, I'm polite to a fault, people get busy, websites get dusty. Besides, he was sweet on the app. Full sentences. A joke about Canadians saying sorry. I'd laughed. I'd said I'd meet him there. He'd offered a ride. I'd said no, thank you, my car, my exit plan. The map pins the restaurant with a cheery red marker. Underneath, closed. I see it as I'm stopped at a light, little gray text like a shrug. My stomach does a tiny Canadian eh? I text him. GPS says it's closed. 3 blinking dots. They're bad with hours. Promise it's open. Park around the side, lots on the river. A smiley I don't like. The road snakes down to a block that feels a degree colder than the one before. Lanes taper, street lamps space themselves too far apart. There it is, the restaurant. A flat, low building with the last of its sign letters clinging on. RST, the rest a dirty ghost on the stucco. The parking lot is wide and dark, river wind carrying the smell of wet metal and old leaves. Not a single other car. The windows are black from the inside. No neon beer signs, no open/closed placard flipped either way. Just a paper taped to the door that the night has turned into a blank rectangle. I pull in because my brain loves momentum. I put it in park and let my fingers fall off the wheel. The engine dies and the silence lands with a tacky little kiss. My phone glows. No new messages. I look at the paper in the window and imagine it saying we're open, with a smiley face. I do not get out to check. The air in the car is too still. I hear my own breathing and under it, the river, its busy mouth chewing on the pier. Headlights flare in my rear view and pull up alongside my driver's side. Close. Too close. Twin beams flood my car interior like interrogation lamps. I shield my face with one hand and turn, but the glare is all I see and the silhouette of someone in the other vehicle, a shape with no details. My first instinct is ridiculous politeness. I reach for the window button to wave and mouth, "You okay?" But my thumb hovers. No. I keep the glass sealed. I feel the subtle kick in my chest that means adrenaline is a finger on a match. The other car idles. The idle feels intentional. I can't see the plate. I can't see anything. My phone chooses now to buzz with a calendar alert about renewing a prescription. I fumble it onto the passenger seat, screen up, because I want the light. I want the illusion of company. Another message comes in him. "Where are you?" I text here. "Lot. Looks closed." He replies instantly. "I'm almost there." "Don't go. Wait by the side door." There's no side door. There's a side wall. I text, "Which side?" The dots appear, vanish, appear. Nothing. I drop the car in reverse and ease back. My backup camera makes the lot look like the moon, pebbly and uninhabited. The other car inches forward to keep level with mine. I stop. They stop. I taste copper. I put it in drive and feint toward the building, then crank the wheel and aim for the exit. The other car jerks, confused, then follows, one space behind and still alongside. The headlights smear everything into a white sheet. My tires bump a pothole, a dull clunk that reverberates in the hollow night like a knock answered from inside the ground. I don't look. I don't look at them, and I definitely don't roll my window down. I nose out of the lot and onto the street. The other car doesn't signal. It eases in behind me, a patient bracket. The light up ahead is red. It's the only light in 3 blocks. I tell myself, take a right, then another right, loop back to the parkway. Toronto girl trick, always loop. My hands are cold inside my palms, and my brain is counting. 1, 2, 3. If they turn when I turn, that's 3 for 3. Green. I go right. They go right. Okay. Another right. They follow. I picture the river on my left like a black animal, pacing me. The road curves. The street lamps get scarcer, and the hum in my car becomes the whole world. The dash vibrating, the smell of my own winter coat, the faint vanilla of a stale fast food bag under the seat from last week. My phone dings again. I shouldn't check. I do anyway. It's a notification from the dating app. New message from. The username is him. I don't open it. I don't need more words in my head when my head needs to be hollow for the map. At the next intersection, I do something that feels like shedding a skin. I flick off onto a side street without signaling. My blinker clicks once, uselessly. My mouth laughs very softly at the absurdity. Me, the blinkers and shoulder check girl, improvising. The other car overshoots, sails past me into the dark. I can see their brake lights flare, twin wounds, and then die out. I don't breathe for a full block, ribcage tight as a fist. Then I'm talking out loud in the empty car, because that's what people do when they scare themselves. Nope. No, thank you. Not today. I tell the steering wheel. We're good. We're fine. My voice is too bright, Canadian customer service gentleness slathered over shaking. We're good, babe. I tell myself, the ridiculous pet name not helping. When I hit the on-ramp, the city folds itself back together around me. Cars, horns, the warm diseased glow that means life. I only look in the rear view 3 dozen times. When I reach my apartment, I park too close to the pillar and sideswipe my mirror cover. I sit with my forehead against the top of the wheel and listen to the tinny clicking noises of my engine cooling, like a rain I deserve. I open the app to message him. Hey, that was weird. The place was closed. I'm heading home. The chat thread is gone. His icon gone. It says user unavailable. No last name. No screenshot. A hole where the conversation was, like someone dug out a square of my night with a neat little trowel. I want to tell myself a normal story. The car was anyone, the restaurant truly closed. He lost his nerve and unmatched out of embarrassment. That story would be kind. That story would let me sleep. Except when I close my eyes, I see the paper in the window making a rectangle, and I think about how the other car positioned itself flush to my door, too close for me to open it without hitting their panel. How the lot had only one entrance, and it would have taken nothing, to box me in. I think of the way his texts were sugar right up until I was alone in the dark, and then all imperative. Don't go. Wait by the side door. Like instructions. Like a stage direction. I matched with him on a Tuesday between med passes, my back against the wall by the blanket warmer, break room fluorescents making everything look like a fish tank. I wasn't looking for fireworks, just a distraction between vitals and charting. His name was Brad. His photos were aggressively normal. Baseball cap, a patio with string lights, one golden retriever that looked borrowed. His bio said IT runner, coffee addict. We traded safe questions on Bumble. Where do you hike? What shift are you on? Do you like spicy food? He used a lot of smiley faces. It all felt padded and beige. 2 days later, he said the app notifications bugged him. Here's my number? Sure, I thought. I was at the Pixis anyway, badge beeping, thinking about my patient's 0200S, how my feet were already bruised from the 12 before. I texted him a hello so he'd have my contact and slid my phone into my scrub pocket. It buzzed before I got the drawer closed. Then again. I glanced. A preview of skin and a word I won't type. 2 photos, unsolicited, flesh-lit by bathroom light. Then a paragraph about everything he wanted to do to me, with time stamps for after my shift. I locked my phone like it had burned me and laughed under my breath, because that's how you keep the air in your lungs when someone smashes your boundaries like a cup. At 3 a.m., between 4 alarms and a call light symphony, I messaged, "Hey, no. I'm at work. Don't send me stuff like that." I kept it clean, professional, nurse voice. The reply came like a hand on the back of my neck. "You led me on. You matched. Don't be a tease." Then the taps became a flood. Question, accusation, apology, threat, all in a cycle. 50-something texts before 5 a.m. My phone jittered across the countertop in the med room. One of the LPNs joked, "Girl, you got fans," and I smiled with my teeth and turned the volume off. By shift change, he'd called 17 times. Each missed call had a voicemail thumbnail, like a row of leeches. The preview on the last one read, "Call me back or I'm blocking you forever," like he was offering me mercy. I drove home on autopilot, my head full of charting I hoped I'd done right, my body vibrating from caffeine and strip-lit hours. I parked on my street under the gum trees and stared at my phone. The message bubbles stacked and stacked, small gray coffins. I blocked the number without listening to a single voice, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, and sat a moment. My apartment window glowed lion's mane yellow. I wanted silence the way you want cold water after a marathon. An hour later, another number texted. "Not so easy to get rid of me." "Then, you owe me an explanation." "Then, what kind of nurse are you?" The tone changed with each new area code, pleading, wheedling, mean. I blocked them as fast as they arrived, like smashing bugs with a shoe. By midnight, my block list looked like a raffle bowl. I put a dumb sitcom on to drown the buzz and ate toast over the sink. At 2:03 a.m., my phone rang with a local number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately, like a drip on metal. Something in me broke. I picked up without thinking. No hello, no preamble, just a voice I didn't know yet, but would come to recognize in my bones. Calm, almost bored. "Why are you ignoring me?" A beat. "I'm outside your house. Your living room light is too bright for this hour." My blood went cold in that slow, educational way. "How do you?" I swallowed. "How do you know where I live?" He chuckled, soft and manicured. "You posted a picture, remember? The fall one. Boots and leggings by your mailbox. Cute. House number right there. You really should be more careful." I dropped to the floor and crawled away from the window, the way people do in movies and also in actual life. My breath sounded like someone else's. I hung up and hit 911. The operator came on steady and warm as a blanket from the dryer. I gave my address, whispered that there was a man in a car outside. She told me to turn off lights if I could and stay away from the front. I pinched the living room lamp off and the room shrank, edges going soft. I peeled the curtain back a fraction. A black sedan idled across the street, driver's side toward me, one hand draped over the wheel. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel the gaze of someone who believes they've already arrived. "Units are on their way," the dispatcher said. "You're doing great. Are you alone?" That word made the floor tilt. "No," I lied. "My roommate is asleep." She told me to stay on the line. My own apartment suddenly had too many reflective surfaces. My lamp. My TV, dark but glossy. The microwave door. I felt watched by my own things. I grabbed a tote, shoved my wallet and charger and a hoodie inside, and crept to the back stairwell. My hands shook so hard the keys made a chime. The cold iron smell of the stairwell steadied me. Outside, the alley hummed like a refrigerator. I slid into my car and didn't turn on the lights until I was at the end of the block. I drove to Sarah's place across town with my heart in my mouth and the dispatcher's voice in my ear. Sarah opened the door in pajama shorts, eyes wide and already full of rage on my behalf. I slept on her couch with the TV low, a rerun murmuring to keep the void away. At 3:12 a.m., officers found a black sedan parked opposite my place. When the cruiser turned the corner, the sedan rolled away slow and polite. They got the plate. The next morning, I sat in a small interview room at the precinct with bad coffee and fluorescent hum, a motif apparently, and told a tired detective about Bumble, about pictures I didn't want and messages I didn't answer, and a voice that knew my lamp. He printed the texts I'd screenshotted until the stack looked like a thesis. He told me to petition for a temporary restraining order. They'd send a car by my place at random intervals for a while. He said, almost gently, "You were right to leave." At the courthouse, a judge with iron gray hair and reading glasses skimmed the call log and the plate and the phrase, "I see your lights are on." He signed without theatrics. The stamp thudded like a door closing. The order felt like paper armor, better than nothing, not enough to sleep in. I went back to Sarah's for 3 nights. On day 2, I sat on her living room rug and scrubbed my online self until she squeaked. I deleted the mailbox photo. I went through 3 years of posts and pried off location tags, unfollowed anybody I didn't know in the oxygenated world, killed old albums that had my street in the background. I turned off geotagging for everything and set my accounts to private, so hard it felt like a bunker door. A patrol car called to say they'd matched the plate to Brad. They'd knocked on his apartment door that morning. He told them it was a misunderstanding, that he'd just been in the neighborhood. The order would make future misunderstandings more expensive. I saved the case number in my notes app and labeled it with a skull emoji because I didn't know what else to name fear. The snow started as a whisper on the windshield, a hush-hush that made me think I could beat it if I just kept moving. Richmond to somewhere in the flat nothing between Virginia and Indiana. Halfway, we'd said, fair and square. I'd checked the map enough times to memorize the exit number, a peel-off ramp toward a two-pump gas station, and a motel that looked sketched onto the world with a dull pencil. By the time the wipers were smearing white into gray, I could barely see the truck lights in front of me. I wasn't going home. I wasn't going to his place. We'd chosen neutral ground like two nations not yet sure if they were friends. He texted that he was close. I told myself his messages were steady, kind, the way he'd been on the app. Full sentences, never too many emojis, a little goofy in a safe way. I thought that meant something. I kept thinking that as the wind seized the car and pushed it sideways like a big kid shoving a smaller one on the playground. The sky had the sickly light you get when snow eats the sun. The motel sign flickered between rooms and ROMS, shedding neon in a sluggish heartbeat. The office smelled like coffee burned onto a hot plate and the kind of cleaner that never quite wins the battle. When I pushed the bell, it gave a metallic ding that didn't echo anywhere. He walked in behind me right then, stamping snow from his boots, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. He looked like his photos, which felt like a relief and a problem at the same time. "Roads are rough," he said, voice easy. "You okay?" "Fine," I lied. My fingers were stiff around my keys. We got adjoining key cards for a double room with 2 queen beds. "No funny business," I joked, because sometimes saying a thing out loud keeps it small. He laughed. It didn't echo either. Room 112 was dressed in tired browns and tired reds. The heater clanked on with a cough, breathing out warm air that smelled faintly of old dust and something sweet, like someone had spilled syrup a long time ago and nobody could find where. Snow hissed across the window pane. TV lights stuttered through a muffled game show, the kind where people clap too long. We talked until the tiredness rose around us like deep water. He stretched, yawned, said goodnight with a grin that pulled a dimple into his cheek. They say the worst sounds in this world can be gentle. The creak of a door, the shift of weight on carpet, breath you don't want near your neck. I woke to the softness of the mattress tilting. Weight settling. Heat above me that wasn't the heater. The TV was still on, volume low, the applause like rain inside a tin can. I didn't move. I didn't scream. Everything in me went very still, like pond water in winter, a hard surface over something dark that used to move. He didn't say my name. I could smell the snow drying in his hair, that cold metallic scent you get from the air itself. His breath was measured, as if he was listening for mine. Under the covers, my hands were cold coins. There is a part of the brain, maybe it's old, maybe it's from back when we lived in caves, that knows when to play dead. Mine pressed a switch I didn't know I had, and I heard myself say in a voice right above a whisper, "Stop." He froze. Not a lot, but enough. A crack in the ice. "I need to tell you something," I said, calm as I could, like I was reading the weather. "Not here. In the morning. We should go. Now." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. He was quiet. The TV audience laughed. The heater hiccuped. He shifted his weight back, and the mattress breathed out. "What?" he said low, suspicious. "What is it?" "If I say it in this room, you'll get mad," I said. "Let's just leave the room, okay? Please." The please tasted like iron. He stayed a second longer, a hesitation that felt like a cliff. Then he slid away. He stood at the foot of my bed in the TV glow, a tall shape with shoulders that looked unfamiliar now. He whispered, "You scared me. I thought you were asleep." I said, and that was true and not true. He went back to his bed and lay there, still as furniture. We both listened to the storm rubbing its cold body against the building. When morning came, the world was quiet and pale, a hush laid over everything like a hand over a mouth. We checked out without looking at each other much. I kept my bag close and my voice even. At the gas station, the fluorescent lights made everyone look like they were made of wax. The clerk watched us over a magazine with more interest than the headlines deserved. He was waiting by the windshield squeegee when I walked up. The snow on his shoulders had turned to glittering water. "So," he said, not unkind and not kind either. It was a word shaped like a door. "I'm a virgin," I said. I let the syllables fall one at a time, flat. It wasn't exactly a lie or a truth I owed him. It was a rope I threw toward the safest shore I could imagine in that second. He blinked. His mouth opened, closed. "Oh," he said, and then, almost to himself, "I thought you had." I thought, he didn't finish. Something behind his eyes tensed, and then let go, like a fist unclenching. He looked a little ashamed, a little relieved, a little boyish in a way that made me want to step back. "I needed you to get off me," I said. "That's all." For a heartbeat, I saw it clearly, a different world where I had not spoken, where the mattress had tilted and kept tilting, where the heater's cough had covered a sound I do not want to name. The shadow of that world lay over this, one like an overcast you don't see until you realize it's been there all day. He nodded and didn't meet my eyes. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, okay." He wiped the squeegee down the windshield like he needed the motion. I could see my car in the reflection, a small thing swallowed by white, by road salt, by the idea that I had come out here to meet someone, and instead met a version of myself that could make a plan inside fear. We did not say goodbye. He walked to his car and drove into the pale morning, tires crunching over old snow. I sat in my driver's seat and listened to the engine turn over. The heater warmed the cabin with that same old syrup scent, and I didn't know if it had always smelled like that or if I would now always think so. My hands would not stop shaking. The applause in the TV from last night lived on in the heater's rattle, in the wiper blades, in my pulse. When I pulled onto the road, the snow squealed under the tires like something small and scared. The highway was a long, thin ribbon of gray shaved clear. The fields on either side were blank and blinding. Every car I passed felt like a witness and an alibi. A mile marker flashed by, and I imagined room 112 sitting still behind me, the bed sympathetic and stupid, holding the shape of us for a while. The motel sign would go back to rooms, full and unbroken, as soon as the sun found it again. Back in Richmond, I washed my sheets even though I hadn't slept in them. I turned off the TV and could still hear that canned clapping echo in my head, the way a laugh track can make any scene feel wrong. I told no one for 3 days. On the 4th day, I told myself. I said it out loud in the shower, where the water could carry some of it away. "Stop." I practiced, the word that had opened the smallest escape hatch. I said, "I need to tell you something." I said, "Please." You ever have one of those dates where like 5 minutes in, you already know you screwed up? Yeah, this was one of those. Only difference was, this screw up didn't just end with me fake texting my best friend for an emergency. It ended with me running for my damn life. So I met this guy, Benny. Met him the usual way. Some dating app one swore I was going to delete 100 times, but never actually did. Benny's profile? Full of pictures of desserts. Cakes, cookies, milkshakes bigger than my head. His bio said, "If you don't love sugar, we can't be friends." Alright, cute theme. I like a guy with a sense of humor. We started chatting, and he was quick, funny, not creepy. He asked if I wanted to meet up. "Let's do something sweet," he said. I figured he meant grabbing a donut or a coffee, something easy. Instead, Benny suggested this place called Sugar Blast, a new dessert cafe in Brooklyn that was blowing up on TikTok. They had this giant sugar rush challenge. Basically, you order a mountain of sweets and see how much you can eat in an hour. Again, cute. Fun. Weird, but whatever. I'm from Queens. I've done weirder on a Sunday. I said yes. When I got there, Sugar Blast looked exactly like the videos, neon lights, giant candy sculptures, music blasting from every corner. It was packed. Kids running around, couples on dates, influencers filming themselves pretending to eat cupcakes. Benny was already there, sitting at a pink booth near the back. He waved when he saw me. Right away, something felt a little off. Not like full-on red flag city, but something. His eyes were wide. Too wide. And he wasn't just tapping his foot. He was bouncing his whole knee like he was trying to launch into orbit. I chalked it up to nerves. First dates are weird, whatever. I slid into the booth. "Hey," I said, smiling. Benny grinned back. "Yo, you ready to destroy some sugar?" He was practically vibrating. Again, weird energy, but I figured he was just hyped. They brought us the Sugar Rush Challenge. And man, it was ridiculous. A literal mountain of cotton candy, waffles, ice cream, cupcakes, donuts, candy bars, and 2 massive milkshakes. It looked like a 6-year-old designed it in a fever dream. I laughed. "This is insane," I said. Benny didn't laugh. He grabbed a donut, shoved it in his mouth in 2 bites, and immediately reached for a cupcake. I blinked. Okay. We all get hungry, no judgment. I picked at a waffle, trying to pace myself. Meanwhile, Benny was going full Cookie Monster, frosting on his hands, powdered sugar dusting his hoodie, milkshake dripping down his wrist. It was a lot. Other people were starting to stare. I leaned across the table. "Hey, maybe slow down a little?" Benny looked up at me. His pupils were huge. Like cartoon huge. And he was sweating. Not a little bit, like full forehead shine, dripping down his temples. He wiped his face with his sleeve and grinned. "I'm good," he said, voice way too loud. I forced a laugh and sat back. Maybe he had a crazy sweet tooth. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he was just trying too hard. I kept telling myself that. Kept trying to be polite. Kept trying to be nice. But the longer I sat there, the more my gut started screaming at me. About 15 minutes in, Benny started talking fast. Like auctioneer fast. And not about normal first date stuff. He started ranting about his exes. How they were too sensitive. How they couldn't handle real energy. How they held him back. His hands were flying everywhere, knocking over napkins, slapping the table for emphasis. At one point, he punched the air like he was shadowboxing. People at the next booth scooted their chairs a little farther away. I laughed nervously and tried to change the subject. "So, what do you do for work?" Benny blinked at me like he forgot I was there. Then he leaned in way too close. "I run energy," he whispered. I stared at him. "Run energy?" He nodded, dead serious. "Pure energy. Flowing through me. They tried to stop me, but they couldn't. Nobody can." "Okay. Cool. Time to go." I pulled out my phone, pretending to check a text. "Hey, my friend just called," I said, standing up. "She needs me too." Benny shot up so fast he knocked over the milkshake. Sticky chocolate milk exploded across the table. People gasped. Benny didn't even blink. "You can't leave," he said, voice low and furious. I froze. He stepped around the booth, blocking me. "You're part of the rush now," he said. I looked around. Nobody was really paying attention anymore. Just another messy table in a chaotic dessert cafe. No one knew I was scared. No one knew this wasn't a joke. I smiled big, fake, way too bright. "Bathroom," I said sweetly. "Be right back." Benny's eyes narrowed. For a second, I thought he wasn't gonna let me. But then he laughed, sharp and ugly, and stepped aside. I bolted. I didn't go to the bathroom. I ran straight out the front door, weaving through kids and strollers and selfie sticks. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. I didn't even look back. I sprinted to the parking garage, fumbling with my keys like every horror movie idiot who dies first. Finally got in my car, locked the doors, peeled out of there like a maniac. Only once I was 5 blocks away did I let myself breathe. Later that night, Benny sent me a DM. It was just one word. Rush. I blocked him instantly, deleted the app, and spent the next few weeks avoiding every neon-lit cafe in the city. Just in case. Moral of the story? When your date shows up looking like he snorted a pound of pixie sticks, trust your gut. Sugar highs are real. And sometimes they're dangerous. The snow started as a soft hiss on the windshield, a private sound, like someone shushing me from the dark. Richmond slid away behind me, and the highway turned into a pale belt where taillights smudged into smears. We'd planned it fair, meet halfway, neutral ground, 2 people from an app pretending weather is just weather. By the time the wipers were painting gray across white, I knew I wasn't going to make it home, and I wasn't going to his place. He texted, "Almost there." The motel's neon stuttered between rooms and RO. MS, a broken tooth smile. The office smelled like burnt coffee and cheap disinfectant. He looked like his photos. That should have helped. It didn't. His cheeks were pink from the cold. His eyes were a little too bright. We asked for 2 beds. "No funny business," I said, like saying it would pin it to the wall. Room 112 breathed old heat and tired carpet. The heater coughed on, sweet and dusty, like syrup warmed past the good point. Snow hissed against the window like it wanted in. We watched a game show with applause that lasted too long, and talked until the storm closed its jaw around the building. When he yawned and said goodnight, the TV laughed once more and went low. They don't tell you how quiet danger is when it's close. It lifts the mattress first, just a little, like a tide. It thickens the air above your face. I woke to the tilt, to the weight that made all my muscles pretend to be furniture. The TV cast a pale aquarium light. His breath measured mine. "Stop," I said. Not loud. Precise. He held still. The heater clinked. Somewhere down the hall a door whispered shut. "What?" he asked, and the word touched my mouth without entering. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Not here. In the morning." I tried to pour calm into the space between us like sand. He didn't move. I could feel what the room would be if he didn't. How the game show laughter would press its hands over everything. "Please," I added, and the word tasted like blood in a bitten cheek. He eased back. The mattress breathed out. In the TV's glow, he was just a shape with shoulders. "You scared me," he whispered. "Thought you were asleep." "I was," I said, and the lie fit well enough. He lay back in his own bed. We didn't sleep. The storm rubbed its cold body along the building. The heater spoke in codes. I counted each click like a bead and named it, alive, alive, alive. Morning made the world look clean, a lie laid carefully over truth. We checked out without small talk. At the gas station, fluorescent lights made our faces waxy. The clerk watched us with curiosity. "You keep under your tongue." He stood by the squeegee, snow melting into glitter on his shoulders. "So," he said, as if so were a knife. "I'm a virgin," I said, dropping the words like stones in a well. His face loosened, then pinched. "Oh, I thought you had," he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Relief and something mean moved through him like weather. "I needed you off me," I said. "That's all." For a second the morning showed me a second morning layered under this one. Same gas station, same heater clicking somewhere. Except I hadn't spoken, and the mattress hadn't breathed out, and the applause had gone on and on. I watched that version disappear in the glass of the station window like steam. We didn't say goodbye. He drove away, tires chewing old snow. In my car, the heater exhaled that same too-sweet scent, and I wondered if it had always smelled like that or if danger leaves a flavor in the air. I don't usually tell people about this date, because the second it leaves my mouth, it sounds fake. Like some kind of urban legend you'd hear at a party. But every word of it is true. It all started during one of those late winter months. The ones where the sun sets at 4:30 p.m. and everyone's pretending spring is just around the corner, even though there's still ice on the sidewalks. I was bored, working remotely from my cramped apartment in Cincinnati, and going through one of those phases where I just mindlessly swiped on dating apps without expecting anything. That's how I matched with Megan. Yes, Megan. I triple-checked. It wasn't a fake name or a weird joke. Her profile was chaotic in a way that felt oddly refreshing. One picture with a pigeon perched on her head, another standing next to a broken vending machine looking victorious, and one blurry shot of a wall covered in moths with the caption, "I like the vibe." She didn't use a ton of emojis. She didn't write some forced bio about loving adventure or living life to the fullest. She seemed weird, but the kind of weird that felt genuine, not performative. We talked for about a week. Her humor was dry, almost deadpan, and half the time I wasn't sure if she was joking. She once sent me a 4-paragraph rant about how self-checkout machines were agents of chaos, and I still have it saved somewhere because it made me laugh so hard. Eventually, Megan invited me to hang out at her place. Normally, I wouldn't go to someone's apartment for a first meeting. That's dating 101. But she lived just a few minutes from me, had a roommate, and it was still bright outside. I figured worst-case scenario. I could make up an excuse and leave early. When I got there, I immediately noticed how clean everything was. Not just tidy, spotless. No dishes in the sink. No jackets thrown over chairs. Nothing out of place. It was like stepping into a model home that someone lived in for exactly 10 minutes at a time. The living room smelled faintly of some generic air freshener, the kind you might find in a dentist's office. Not bad, just sterile. Megan looked exactly like her pictures, just a little more tired around the eyes. She had that kind of stare where you felt like she was studying you, not in a creepy way exactly, more like she was cataloging your existence for future reference. She offered me tea and motioned for me to sit on the tiny gray couch. We talked about random stuff, the weirdest things we found on sidewalks, how raccoons are probably smarter than most politicians, the time she got banned from a Kroger for arguing with a self-checkout kiosk. It was strange conversation, but entertaining. I was halfway through my tea when she asked if I wanted to come by again in a few days. She said her roommate was going to be gone, and she wanted someone to help her taste test a bunch of new tea blends. I said sure. Why not? The second visit is when things got strange. It was later in the evening this time. Dark out but not late. I brought snacks, figuring it was the polite thing to do. Megan answered the door wearing pajama pants with cartoon avocados on them and a baggy hoodie that said, "I'm just here for the Wi-Fi." She looked more relaxed, but that intense stare was still there, lurking under the surface. We put on some random horror movie from the 80s that barely made sense, and didn't even try to. Half the characters didn't have names, they just screamed and ran into walls. Around halfway through, Megan got up and offered to make tea again. I followed her into the kitchen because honestly, sitting alone in that overly silent living room was starting to creep me out. Her kitchen was just as spotless as the rest of the apartment. Minimalist, almost unnervingly so. Bare counters except for a small wooden organizer filled with tiny glass jars, each one labeled in neat handwriting. Chamomile, Earl Grey, peppermint, jasmine. And one small blue container. No label. Sitting right next to the tea jars. It was open. I wouldn't have even noticed it if I hadn't crouched down to look at the lower shelves. But there it was. A dull grayish powder inside. Next to it, a tiny metal scoop that looked too precise to be for anything casual. I pointed at it, half joking. "What's that? Secret ingredient?" Megan turned to look and gave a little laugh. "Oh, that's rat poison," she said, completely deadpan. "My roommate keeps it around because we had a mouse problem last year. I must have grabbed it when I was cleaning." She didn't sound worried. She didn't sound anything. She just shrugged and went back to pouring hot water. Now, I hadn't seen her scoop anything from that container. I hadn't seen her touch it at all. But the kettle was already boiling. And there was already one mug sitting out, waiting. The mug she handed to me. I stared at it. The smell was normal. Herbal. Maybe chamomile. Maybe peppermint. I couldn't really tell. But my brain was screaming that something was wrong. Megan smiled at me, holding her own cup, and took a tiny sip. I lifted mine to my lips, pretending to take a sip, then set it down, claiming it was too hot. "I'm just gonna run to the bathroom real quick," I said, trying to sound casual. She nodded, unfazed. In the bathroom, I poured the tea down the sink and rinsed the mug out thoroughly. Then I just stood there, staring at myself in the mirror, heart pounding. Was I being dramatic? Maybe. Maybe she really had just accidentally left that container out. Maybe it was an honest mistake. Or maybe I was one sip away from being a headline. When I came back out, Megan didn't mention the tea. She didn't ask why I hadn't touched it. She just smiled and plopped back down on the couch, watching the movie like nothing had happened. I made up some excuse about needing to leave early. Family emergency. Work thing. Whatever. She nodded, said, "Cool," and didn't even walk me to the door. I left the apartment feeling like I had just dodged something. Not a bullet exactly, but something. Something slow and creeping and inevitable. Megan texted me the next day. "Had fun. Let's hang out again soon. Next time I'll make cookies." Smiley face. I didn't reply. Eventually, she stopped messaging. I thought about reporting it, telling someone, anyone, that something about that night felt wrong. But what was I going to say? "Hey, this girl might have accidentally poisoned me but smiled about it." There was no proof. No evidence. Just my gut. To this day, I still don't know if it was an innocent mistake or something darker. Maybe she really was just absent-minded. Or maybe she was testing me, seeing if I was the kind of person who'd notice. I'll never know. But ever since that night, I've had a single rule. I don't drink tea at other people's houses. Not because I'm paranoid, but because now, every time I smell chamomile, I wonder what's really in the cup. Honestly, it started off so good that I almost didn't believe it was happening. You know when you meet someone who just feels different? Not in a "this person is sketchy" way, but in the "maybe rom-coms didn't actually lie to me" way. That was James. We matched on a random Thursday night when I was half asleep and swiping without much hope. His profile was refreshingly normal. A picture in a bookstore, another of him at a beach bonfire, and one blurry photo of him mid-laugh, holding a slice of pizza like it was a trophy. His bio was simple but clever. Recovering philosophy major. Fluent in sarcasm. Probably thinking about tacos. We started talking, and within minutes, it felt easy, natural. He was funny without trying too hard, flirty without being gross, and somehow managed to make even boring topics like favorite laundry detergent sound charming. After a couple of days of texting that included everything from deep-dive conversations about our worst dates to joking about who would survive longer in a zombie apocalypse, spoiler, not me, he asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I said yes without hesitation. We agreed to meet at The Roasted Bean, a cozy little cafe in downtown Portland that had the perfect balance of indie music and slightly uncomfortable chairs that made you want to order just one more drink to stay longer. I got there a few minutes early, nerves buzzing under my skin. I kept telling myself it was just another date. Nothing special. No expectations. But when James walked in, I felt it like a punch to the gut. He was even hotter in person. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a snug gray sweater that looked way too good on him, jeans that hung just right, and this easy, slow grin that made my brain short-circuit for a second. He saw me, smiled wider, and slid into the seat across from me like he owned the place. The conversation flowed effortlessly. He made me laugh so hard I almost snorted chai out my nose. He listened like really listened, leaning in slightly every time I spoke, resting his chin in his hand, like I was the most fascinating person in the room. There was a moment, about 30 minutes in, when our knees accidentally brushed under the table. It sent a tiny jolt up my spine. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. Something electric started humming between us, subtle but unmistakable. After an hour, he suggested grabbing a drink at a bar nearby. I agreed. Honestly, I would have followed him almost anywhere at that point. At the bar, things got a little more flirtatious. The kind of teasing touches on the arm when we laughed, the lingering eye contact, the casual way he leaned closer every time he spoke. At one point, he brushed a stray hair from my face, fingers trailing lightly along my jawline. It was such a small gesture, but my whole body reacted like he had flipped a switch I didn't even know was there. The chemistry was undeniable, tangible, practically crackling in the air between us. He asked if I wanted to take a walk, and even though it was chilly, I said yes immediately. We wandered toward the waterfront, sipping coffee we grabbed from a late-night food truck. At one point, he took my hand, casually like it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart thudded in my chest so loudly I was sure he could hear it. When we stopped to look out over the water, he turned to me, brushed his fingers lightly along my cheek again, and kissed me. Soft at first. Testing. Then deeper, more sure. It was one of those kisses that makes you forget what day it is. The kind that makes your toes curl inside your shoes. When we finally pulled apart, we both laughed a little, breathless. "I've been wanting to do that since the second I saw you," he murmured, forehead resting against mine. I was gone. Absolutely gone. We kissed again, slower this time, our bodies pressing closer together, heat building between us despite the cold air. And that's when he suggested going back to his place. I hesitated for half a second. I wasn't usually the type to rush things, but the way he looked at me, the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the whole city, made it hard to say no. Still, I shook my head gently. "I should probably head home," I said, trying to sound more decisive than I felt. He didn't push, just smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "Next time then." It was perfect. Almost too perfect. We said goodnight, and I floated back to my car feeling like I was walking on air. I couldn't stop smiling the whole drive home. The next morning, I woke up to a sweet text from James. "Still thinking about that kiss. Hope you slept like a queen." I smiled like an idiot and went about my day. It wasn't until later that I noticed my wallet was missing. I tore apart my apartment, my car, my purse, nothing. It was gone. At first, I thought maybe I had left it at the bar or the cafe. I called both places. Nothing turned in. Panic started to creep in. I canceled my cards, filed a missing property report online, and tried to retrace every step. And then it hit me. I remembered setting my purse on the bench by the waterfront. I remembered being a little distracted, a little too caught up in James's hands, his mouth, the way he made me feel. I remembered him standing very close to me, one hand on my waist, the other somewhere near my purse. I tried to shake it off, tried to believe the best. Maybe it had fallen out. Maybe I was being paranoid. But then I opened the dating app to message him, and his profile was gone. Deleted. No trace of him. No number. No socials. Nothing. James, if that was even his real name, had vanished like smoke. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like the stupidest person alive. I wasn't just mad that someone had stolen from me. I was mad because I had believed it, because I had wanted so badly to believe that someone could actually be that perfect. It wasn't about the money, or the hassle of replacing my credit cards. It was about realizing that sometimes the people who make you feel the most special are the ones you should be most careful around. Since that night, I've been more cautious, more guarded. I still believe in chemistry, in connection, in magic, but now I also believe in holding on to my purse with both hands, no matter how good the kiss is. At this point, I really should have just deleted the app. But no, I was still holding on to a shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was someone out there who wasn't completely unhinged. Enter Ethan. His profile was cute, but unmemorable. One picture of him holding a giant pretzel at Oktoberfest, one blurry concert photo, and a mirror selfie that was just humble enough not to scream narcissist. His bio read, "Looking for someone who laughs at their own jokes. Bonus points if you love dogs and bad horror movies." Simple. Safe. We matched on a rainy Tuesday night while I was curled up on my couch with a bowl of mac and cheese and no expectations whatsoever. His messages were normal, bordering on charming. He asked good questions, made actual jokes that didn't feel ripped from a cringy Reddit thread, and even recommended a horror movie I hadn't seen yet, which honestly impressed me. After about a week of talking, he asked if I wanted to grab drinks. I agreed. We met at a bar called the Rusty Anchor, down by the waterfront in Baltimore. It was the kind of place with sticky floors, Christmas lights still strung up in July, and a jukebox that only played 80s rock ballads. Honestly, my kind of vibe. Ethan showed up on time, wearing a leather jacket and jeans, looking just like his pictures. Slightly taller than I expected, with a crooked smile that made him seem more approachable than intimidating. The first hour of the date was honestly fantastic. We talked about terrible first jobs. He once dressed as a giant hot dog for a mall promotion. Weird phobias. He was terrified of clowns. I confessed my irrational fear of escalators, and bonded over our mutual hatred of raisins and cookies. The drinks flowed. The conversation flowed. The chemistry? Not fireworks, but definitely a steady, promising spark. I thought, finally. A normal one. And then came the curveball. We were about 2 drinks in when Ethan leaned forward, resting his arms on the table, and said, "So, I have to ask, are you into roleplay?" I blinked, caught mid-sip of my rum and coke. "I like Dungeons and Dragons?" I asked, trying to keep it light. He grinned. "Not exactly. More like in the bedroom." I coughed, nearly choking on my drink. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a prude. I'm all for people having their kinks and preferences. But bringing that up on a first date, before the appetizer even hits the table? Bold move, my guy. I laughed a little awkwardly, thinking he might be joking. He wasn't. He leaned in even closer, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I have this one scenario I really love. I think you'd be perfect for it." My brain screamed at me to leave. To fake a phone call. To climb out the bathroom window if I had to. But because I'm a sucker for needing to know how deep the weirdness goes, I stupidly asked, "Oh yeah, what's the scenario?" Ethan's eyes lit up, like I had just given him the green light he was waiting for. "So," he said, "you'd pretend to be a barista who's super into me. Like you've been watching me come into your coffee shop for months, and you finally can't resist anymore. You offer me a special drink, but it's actually a code for how you want to take me in the back and..." I held up a hand. "Okay, whoa. Maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves," I said, laughing awkwardly. He didn't seem embarrassed. Not even a little. In fact, he looked delighted. Like he thought I was playing hard to get. "I just think it'd be super hot," he continued, undeterred. "Like you're this shy, nerdy girl who finally snaps and just has to have me." He said it with so much confidence I almost admired it. Almost. Instead, I sat there trying to figure out how to politely end the night without causing a scene. I mumbled something about work the next morning, fake-checked my phone for an imaginary early meeting, and said I had to head out. Ethan stood up too, surprisingly fast, and offered to walk me to my car. I declined. Firmly. He hesitated, then smiled again, like he knew something I didn't. "Next time, you should wear the apron," he said with a wink. I laughed, partly out of shock, partly because what else could I do? And practically sprinted to my car. I sat there in the driver's seat for a good few minutes afterward, just processing. Not angry. Not even particularly creeped out. Just exhausted. Exhausted by how fast some people will jump over the line from flirty to, "Here's my detailed fantasy about you." Ethan texted me the next day. "Had an amazing time last night. Can't wait to see you again. Maybe we can start practicing the barista thing, winking face. I didn't reply. A few hours later, he sent another. "Hope you're not too shy to try something new. You'd be so good at it." Blocked. Deleted. Gone. I wish I could say that was the weirdest date I ever had. It wasn't. Not by a long shot. But it was the first one that made me realize that sometimes, no matter how cool someone seems at first, you really might just be one drink away from hearing about their entire coffee shop seduction fantasy. And honestly, no amount of free lattes would have made that worth it. So this date taught me that even a simple cup of coffee can turn into a trap you never saw coming. His name was Jordan. Jordan's Tinder profile was pleasant without him trying too hard. Few hunky pics and out with his friends. He messaged first. Polite. Funny. Seemingly normal. After a few days of chatting, he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. Just something casual, he said. No pressure. Perfect. We agreed to meet at The Daily Grind, a cozy, sunlit cafe in a busy part of town. The kind of place where no one notices you unless you're holding up the line. I got there first, ordered a latte, and grabbed a table by the window. Jordan arrived 5 minutes later. He looked exactly like his photos, sandy brown hair, jeans and a hoodie, easy smile. He greeted me with a warm hug that felt genuine, not weirdly intimate. For the first 10 minutes, everything was fine. We talked about favorite books, travel dreams, the weirdest things we'd ever eaten. His was escargot, mine was fried crickets. I started to relax. Maybe, for once, I had found someone normal. Then somehow the conversation shifted. It started innocently enough. Jordan asked where I grew up. I told him, a small liberal city, and casually mentioned how much I loved the community vibe there. His smile twitched at the edges. Oh, he said, voice light. One of those places. I laughed awkwardly, unsure what he meant. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. So, I'm guessing you're one of those woke people, huh? I blinked. The tone was sharp, mocking. I tried to brush it off. Well, I care about equality and stuff, if that's what you mean, I said carefully. He laughed, a short, humorless sound. Equality, he repeated, like it was a dirty word. Right. Bet you think everyone deserves a trophy too, huh? I stared at him, stunned. Was this happening? Was I being politically interrogated over coffee? I tried to steer the conversation back to neutral ground. Books. Travel. Anything. But Jordan wasn't having it. He leaned forward, voice low and intense. Let's just be real, he said. I don't want to waste my time with someone who's brainwashed. My stomach twisted. I opened my mouth to respond, to defend myself, but he cut me off. You're one of those people who think feelings matter more than facts, he sneered. Probably think men are evil and capitalism is the devil. The words hit like tiny slaps. I hadn't said a word about politics. Hadn't brought up a single controversial topic. But Jordan had decided who I was based on a few harmless comments. And now he was unloading every angry opinion he'd been saving for someone like me. I glanced around the cafe. No one was paying attention. Just the soft hum of espresso machines, quiet conversations, clinking coffee cups. I felt trapped, cornered. I tried to stand up, murmuring something about needing to leave. Jordan's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to make my heart lurch. Hey, he said, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. We're just having a conversation. Don't be so sensitive. I yanked my hand free. My voice was shaking, but I kept it steady enough. I think I'm done with this conversation, I said. I grabbed my bag and left without looking back. When I got to my car, I locked the doors and sat there for a moment, breathing hard, trying to process. It wasn't just that he disagreed with me. It was the way he had attacked. The way he had enjoyed making me feel small. The way he had smiled while doing it. It wasn't a debate. It was an ambush. A trap disguised as a date. Later that night, Jordan sent me a text. You're exactly what's wrong with this country. Grow up. I blocked his number without replying. Deleted the app. Spent the rest of the night curled up on the couch, eating leftover pizza and watching mindless TV, trying to scrub the memory from my brain. It didn't work. I had just broken up with someone who wanted only a warm body to ease her rebound from breaking up with her ex, while I wanted more of a committed relationship. So suffice it to say I was a bit lonely and looking for someone more on the same page. I reactivated my OkCupid profile and resumed the search. She messaged me, which is a bit out of the ordinary, but hardly a red flag to me. I was of course thrilled. Her profile indicated she spoke a ton of languages, was in a PhD program, and liked motorcycles. She overall seemed like someone brilliant and eccentric. She was also quite attractive and lived very close by. Her first message to me, "Why are you so gosh darn beautiful?" So we chat for a while. Dude, she was smart as hell, and I was very interested, and phone numbers get exchanged. One cold evening in December, I hunkered down to write a final project due in 18 hours. I pop an Adderall and get to work. On one of my breaks, she gives me a call, and we chat, and all of a sudden, she starts questioning me about every tiny detail on my profile in a very accusatory tone. Of course, since I was under the influence of a medical-grade stimulant and am an anxious individual at even the best of times, my anxiety spiked and I had to stop the conversation, apologizing profusely. I was not in the best mental state at the time, of course. Maybe I overreacted. But her response? For the next week, she would call me nonstop. My phone would not stop vibrating. She literally kept dialing and redialing, as though she were hovering over the phone and waiting for the call to hang up so she could redial again. I had to shut my phone off, because every time I blocked her number, it would work for about half a day before she started calling me from a different number. Her last message to me: "Answer and speak or I'll kill you." Yes, she threatened me and ended it with a hard emoticon. The universe could have undergone heat death and collapsed back into a primordial singularity, and I would not have been able to go nope, nope, nope enough times to express my feelings about the whole situation. Fortunately, the next time I tried OkCupid, I found a wonderful, loving, and most importantly, non-crazy person with whom we enjoyed a few months of joy and growth before we had to break up because of life circumstances. Oh dear, this happened to me just last week. I am on the Bumble dating app. I accepted a date with a guy on there who coincidentally happened to be a brother of a guy I have known casually for a few years. This mistakenly made me feel he must be safe and normal. I allowed this person to pick me up from my house. Huge mistake. One of the first questions he asked me is, "Are you racist?" I replied, "No, I don't feel I am." "Why?" He replied, he is not racist, but he doesn't like N-ers. At first, I thought I heard wrong. I did not. For the rest of the evening, much of his conversation consisted of using the N-word repeatedly, coupled with questions asking me if I had ever dated a He said he could never date a woman who had Ked 1. He was also overly hyperactive. I believe he might have been on something like speed or something else. Honestly, I have no idea. He showed me screenshots of pics and comments from my private Instagram. He criticized my photos and said I posted them for attention. He told me he Googled and researched me. He said he did not like the thought of any woman of his receiving comments on her photos by N-ers. He loved using the N-word. I asked how he was able to obtain any photos since my Instagram is private. His answer was because he is ex-military. He proceeded to tell me about men he had killed in Iraq at point-blank range during Operation Freedom. He also announced he wanted me to post only photos of him and I on my social media accounts. He asked what I was doing the next day, and I said I am busy. The following day I received a text from this racist maniac saying he's sitting in his vehicle in my driveway. I texted back I am not home, and I am disturbed to hear he is in my driveway. I explained I didn't want to see him anymore. He replied with several long texts begging me to be with him, telling me I am beautiful and amazing. He said he found and kept 2 strands of my hair. He spoke as if we had been dating for months. When I said I barely know you, please stop, he replied he would. He did not. I received more pleading text messages. Then I received a text asking to just hang out as friends. I said, no. We are 2 very different people, and it's best we don't see each other at all. He then replied with very mean name calling and telling me I am fat. He called me Miss Piggy. LOL, he said 4 people had told him I am a fat bitch. He said he has $750K in the bank, and that was not enough to feed me. He told me to F off. I hope I will never hear from him again. I have saved all the texts from this man in case he ever shows up at my house again. I have them to show to the police. I have blocked him on all my sites, and hopefully he won't see this or anything else connected to me. This one Bumble date was definitely with a scary dude. Asterisk, I want to add that after this very upsetting experience, I deleted my profile on that dating app and have not been on any dating sites since. After my divorce, I tried a couple of dating sites for about 3 months total, and was not pleased with the quality of any of the men I encountered. After all I have been through, I have taken a complete break from socializing, and it has remained this way since January. There's something surreal about realizing you're in danger while surrounded by hundreds of people. You think, I'm in public. Nothing bad can happen here. But danger doesn't always look like a masked stranger in a dark alley. Sometimes it looks like a smile too wide, a tone too sweet, a hand reaching just a little too close. And sometimes, it starts with a simple invitation you should have known better than to accept. His name was Daniel. We met because I broke my own rule: never swipe right on someone who only has car selfies. After 2 days of chatting, Daniel suggested we meet up together. My heart pounded when he first asked me, Not for dinner or coffee, but to hang out at the mall. We can just walk around, people watch, grab a snack, he said. Low pressure. Super chill. Normally, I would have suggested something else. But I had errands to run nearby anyway, and honestly, the idea of something casual sounded appealing after a string of stiff, overly formal dates. I agreed. We set a time to meet at Willow Creek Mall that Saturday afternoon. The place was always packed on weekends, noisy, chaotic, and full of families, which made me feel safer. I figured worst case, if it got weird, I could just fake a phone call and slip away into the crowd. It never crossed my mind that being surrounded by people wouldn't matter. When I got there, Daniel was already waiting by the main fountain. He waved when he saw me, flashing a big, easy smile. He looked just like his pictures, maybe even better in person. Tall, dark hair, casual hoodie and jeans. He greeted me with a hug that lasted a second too long, but didn't seem creepy, not yet. We started walking through the mall, chatting about random things, favorite foods, worst jobs, dream vacations. At first, it felt easy, but after about 20 minutes, I started to notice little things. Whenever I tried to steer the conversation towards something light, funny stories, pets, music, Daniel would pull it back to money. How expensive his car was. How much he spent on clothes. How broke people were lazy. I laughed it off awkwardly, thinking maybe he was just nervous and overcompensating. Then he started nudging me towards stores. Expensive ones. Designer boutiques, jewelry counters, places I normally wouldn't even glance at unless I was window shopping. At first, it was subtle. He'd point to a bag or a jacket and say, "You'd look amazing in that," like he was just paying compliments. But soon, it turned into something else. Something heavier. He started picking things up and handing them to me. "Try this on," he said at one store, thrusting a sequin dress into my arms. I shook my head. It's not really my style. He laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Come on. Don't be so boring." I tried to laugh it off, but my chest tightened. I didn't want to be rude. Didn't want to make a scene. So I played along for a little while. I tried on a few things, smiled politely, made excuses about not wanting to spend too much. But Daniel's mood soured quickly. Every time I said no, he seemed less charming. More impatient. More calculating. It all came to a head at a luxury shoe store. Daniel dragged me inside, practically buzzing with excitement. He pointed out a pair of boots, sleek, leather, and wildly out of my price range. "You have to get these," he said, grinning. "They're amazing." I shook my head firmly this time. "They're beautiful, but I can't afford that." He frowned. "You work, don't you?" The words weren't a question, they were an accusation. I laughed nervously. "Yeah, but not enough to drop $500 on boots." He stepped closer. Too close. "You're just scared," he said, voice low and smooth. "Scared to invest in yourself." I took a step back. "I'm not scared," I said. "I'm just not stupid." That wiped the smile off his face. For a heartbeat, his expression twisted into something cold and mean. "You're pathetic," he hissed, so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. I turned to leave. But he grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to make my heart hammer against my ribs. "Let go," I said louder than I intended. Heads turned. Finally, Daniel released me instantly, hands raised like I was the crazy one. "Whoa," he said, laughing awkwardly. "Chill. I was just joking." I didn't answer. I didn't even look at him. I just walked out of the store, out of the mall, and didn't stop until I was locked inside my car. Only then did I let myself shake. Only then did I realize how close I had come to being trapped by someone who thought he was entitled to me. My time, my money, my fear. Later that night, the texts came. First one, then another, and another. "You're a stuck-up bitch. Good luck finding anyone better than me. You'll regret this." I blocked the number, reported him on the app, and deleted my account for good measure. But the fear lingered.